So last time I spoke about the possibility that if the historical Buddha would be alive today, he might have added a fifth Vipallasa to the classic list of the four, which are found in the scriptures, because our times are characterized by a deep disconnection from all natural support systems, or, as it's known, the biosphere or planet Earth, and the feminine principle in general. So there is a denial of the life-giving power of the feminine principle, and the planet, being the vastest expression of it. And, the groups of humans which are responsible for this increased eco-cultural unraveling are mainly those who are financially currently still benefiting, from these extractive industries. And it's estimated, if I said a few times already, that about 8% of the global population control about 50% of the global wealth. And that, staggering imbalance has extreme detrimental effects on the human nervous systems of the majority of the global population, with this constant struggle, to survive and how to get to the next day, how to pay the bills, how to find water, and all of these things. And also has an effect onto the more than human body of the planet. And, you might have heard about the planetary boundaries. There is, 9 planetary boundaries, and of those 9 boundaries, 7 have already been breached. And, on some of them have been breached in the late 19th century, 2 of them. And, we are getting closer and closer to having all of them breached. And they are the result of, the Earth system not being able to replenish in the same time frame as what the extraction and the pollution is happening. And, you can Google that information on the internet. Just put in planetary boundaries. So, reading that is really bringing it, back home to us, that, what we really want, I think what all humans want, and not only humans, but also animals, they want belonging and safety. That's what we all want, deep down, and a sense of meaning, serving that to which we belong. And we have, been in that search, being completely sidetracked, and have actually managed to damage that to which we belong, and through that damage, our own chances for a fulfilling life. Because of ignorance, not because we are bad, but because of ignorance, and because we are considered, a very immature species compared with other species, such as like trees, for example, who are very capable of working together and of helping each other and of adjusting and thriving within limits. So, what we have been setting in motion is very well encapsulated in the list of the Vipallasa, really. And I just want to shortly screen share the list in. And I have also put it in the chat for those of you who'd like to maybe download it and print it out at home. So that's a very short summary of the Anguttara Nikaya 449, what's called the Vipallasa Sutta. Distortions, and sometimes also translated as hallucinations or inversions. And in the old translations, like in last century, sometimes it was also translated as perversions, actually. And those distortions, they arise on three levels: the level of perception, the level of mind, and the level of you. And I've given the example, of, let's say you're going to a forest and there is a long, thin, dark object on the ground. And for a moment you think, this is a snake, and the body kind of contracts and there's fear, That's like perception, which when it needs to be quick, it just classifies all long, thin objects into something dangerous, because that's our evolutionary equipment, in order to survive. So that's the most superficial level perception. But then, if we might keep on going through the forest and still, dwelling on it, chitta, mind, thinking, still, having fearful thoughts about it and getting really kind of worried and being quite disconnected from what's going on in the forest, but just being glued onto our thoughts. And then, as we walk maybe for 15 minutes, it starts to settle down, peter out, and it's gone, And then there comes the third level, which is view, which is the deepest one, a sense of phobia, Even there is no snakes around, we still can't put it down, And we might choose to not go into a forest because the fear is so deep, because there might have been a trauma or something in the past. So these three levels, and they occur in these 4 different ways according to the scriptures. Seeing what is impermanent as permanent, seeing what is painful as pleasant, seeing what is without a self as a self, and seeing what is not beautiful as beautiful. So that's the 4 classic distortions of perception, and you can find this handout in the chat if you want to download it. And then I said, if the Buddha would be alive today, he would have come up with a 5th one. And I would say it would go something like this, seeing that which is connected as separate and disconnected, meaning, our own bodies. And in that way, our access to reality has been very, very distorted. And that's why, we came up with all of these systems which are actually not serving us and starting to actually, break down, as we all know. And these misunderstandings, they run really deep. And I have a good example, the standard fear about AI, runs like this. Machines are becoming more and more like humans. So that's like the standard fear, which goes around in the media, that machines gonna control us and, and they suddenly gonna walk around and oppress us and all of this stuff. While in reality, the real danger seems to be running in the opposite direction. We are more like becoming like machines. Not physically, but intellectually, or in the way we think and process information. Because, it's like thinking and learning is just, understood as an issue of computation and data processing with AI, and creativity is just a recombination of data. Decision making is all about optimization, and human beings are just algorithms. So it's more like the danger is that we are becoming more and more like machines, because becoming increasingly disconnected from the biosphere and the limitations of the biosphere, which we can only relate to through our bodies, because our bodies are embedded in the biosphere. They are part of the biosphere, and as I say often, we are actually participants of the planet. We are not separate and then looking onto it, with our computers and try to figure out what it's doing. This is so superficial. This can absolutely not work, and we can see it all around us. And that's why, we have been managing to break 7 out of 9 planetary boundaries. Because of that, very superficial relationship. And thinking, if we have a lot of data, like these data centers which gobble up so many resources, but they have a lot of data, but they're all very superficial. They're like barely skimming the surface. And they can be, billions, the whole planet can be covered with those data centers. They're never gonna get to what really matters, because they are only about trying to figure out how people can be manipulated into buying more and things like that. So it's like pretty tragic. So I really like the quote, which is in some of the suttas at the end, where, certain people who have been listening to a teaching by the Buddha, and then they say to him at the end, "Magnificent Master Gautama, magnificent Master Gautama. The Dhamma has been made clear in many ways by Master Gautama, as though he were turning upright what had been turned upside down, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to one who was lost, or holding up a lamp in the dark for those with eyesight to see forms. As though he were turning upright what had been turned upside down, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to one who was lost, or holding up a lamp in the dark for those with eyesight to see forms." So I think, that's what we are trying to do by, applying some of these very early lists of the Buddhist teaching, which can be found in the Theravada canon and early Buddhist canon. And then, really bringing those ways of looking to the issues of contemporary life. And then really trying to increasingly live from those insights, inside of the crucible of our lives, to the degree we can. We have to just be humble and start where we are, and then really trusting that the Dharma is leading onwards. That's one of the qualities of the Dharma, that it said, one who upholds the Dhamma will be upheld by the Dhamma. And life will respond, by bringing about suitable circumstances for us to go deeper and for our minds and hearts to increasingly open. And it's a slow process, and sometimes, there can be real kind of leaps as well, but it really needs the courage and the humility to apply what we have seen to the degree we can, and to challenge ourselves a little bit, to be in the stretch, to be in the discomfort of the uncertainty, and at the same time, not biting off more than we can chew, and dropping goal orientation, because goal orientation deeply blinds us, and we can see that with this extractive paradigm. It's deeply blinded by this goal orientation for more, quick, and all of that stuff. So when we meet here on these Wednesdays, it's all about, okay, let's take stock. And for that, we need to slow down and being willing to feel uncomfortable, really, by seeing how deeply deluded we are. Oh my gosh. And then, no need to beat oneself up for it, but to just take that in and if we relate to it in the right way, it can really open us up. And, then setting clear priorities, in particular, what pertains to the precepts, the 5 precepts, and what's called in the teaching, noble friends, people who are on the same wavelength, who are having similar priorities. And this Wednesday group is such a meeting place, where you can be together with people who have those similar priorities and who are willing to sit together in the dark, waiting for something new to open up when the time has come. The path is very mysterious, and sometimes it takes us to very narrow places, where there's a lot of fear and not knowing. I really have experienced that and still experience it, from time to time, but it's getting a little bit better. I must say, I can see that I just have more trust, from the feedback I have received from life, in the most odd ways and situations, When something was really needed, it did come along, but not on my time frame. So, let's find a posture for meditation now for about 35 minutes or so. And allowing the mind to rest on the body, just in the same way as the body rests on the cushion, on the chair, on the couch, wherever you are. And then maybe considering, what brought you here today. How is it? Here where I am in San Rafael, it's been raining this morning, very beautiful, and now there's sunshine. And sensing the gravity of the earth, which gently holds us in place and also shows us where we belong. So, with the out breath, just letting go of any tiredness or unease, stress, whatever it is, or maybe pain in your body, just letting that drop down into the soil underneath where you are sitting. And breathing up the stillness and stability of the body of the earth. And just landing here in this island of coherence, pocket of sanity, refuge in the midst of it all, with the intention to participate to our fullest potential. Without any pressure. How is it? And feeling the bones in the body, the pressure on the cushion on the chair. It's really, mainly the bones pressing on the flesh, pressing on the surface of where we're sitting. The bones, holding the body upright. And we can directly feel the bones in the mouth. The teeth are considered the tips of the bones. The bones which are made from the same earth element as the rocks and the mountains and the concrete of the cities. Not as building blocks, but as a quality, the quality of hardness and structure. And if you don't eat for a month or two, don't ingest earth element, then the body is not gonna live. It's gonna collapse. Really allowing that vulnerability and that constant recycling, that constant exchange with the biosphere, allowing that to become more tangible viscerally by sensing into it. And maybe, supporting that sensing through a simple visualization as a cell inside of a vast body. So the visualization supports the capacity to sense. The visual senses are the most powerful of our senses in terms of impact. And then and smelling is also very, very powerful. And same, with the water element, which, comes to us from the tap, the water from the watershed where we live, comes out of the tap and then goes into our body. And at one point it goes back into the bathroom, and after being processed, then it goes back into the watershed. So in that way, perception expands, and it takes on a quite mysterious situation, which really can't be captured in a few words, but it can be experienced through this practice. And it has to be, experienced repetitively in order to really have an effect on us. So that it requires a commitment, which becomes kind of available, I think if we continue to look, the commitment is just going to be born, kind of. Because it makes so much sense. Just simply, by being part of this lineage of human beings from deep time, from our early human ancestors to today and into the future, our contribution is now. And today I have brought a chant, which I will just recite bit by bit slowly, and just for you to get a feel about what's called the 10 subjects for frequent recollection by one who has gone forth. And one who has gone forth is considered one who has ordained, but I think in a way it's also really applicable as a reflection for anyone, who wants to really go forth into the Dharma. And that, gone forth means papacha, which is samaneri, or novice ordination, 10 precept ordination in Buddhism. And I'm just gonna chant the Pali line and then read the English translation and go slowly through that chant over those next 20 minutes, which are still available for our sit. So it goes like that. Handamayang babachita pinya bachavekana patang panama se tasai me dhamma babachitena abinhang bachave kitapa Katametasa. These are the 10 dhammas which should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. What are these then? Vevaniyamiya chupakatoti papachitena abinhang Pachave kitapang. I am no longer living according to worldly aims and values. This should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Parapatipata me chivikati papachitena apinhang pachave kitapang. My very life is sustained through the gifts of others. This should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Anyo me akapo karaniyo tipa pachitena apinang pachave kitapang. I should strive to abandon my former habits. This should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Kachinuko me atta silato na upavata tipa pachite na apinhang pachawe kitapang. Does regret over my conduct arise in my mind? This should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Kachinuko mang anuvichavinyu sa brahmachari silato na upavatanti tipa pachite na apinhang pachawe kitapang. Could my spiritual companions find fault with my conduct? This should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Sapehi me piyehi mana pehi nana pavo vina pavo tipa pachitena apinhang pachawe kitapang. All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. This should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Kamma sakami kamma dayada kamma yoni kamma pando kamma patisarana yang kamang karisami kalayanang va papakang va tasatayata pavisamiti papachitena apinhang pachawe kitapang. I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma, related to my karma, abide supported by my karma. Whatever karma I shall do, for good or for ill, of that I will be the heir. This should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Katang puta samera tintiva vitipatan titipa pachitena apinhang pachawe kitapang. The days and nights are relentlessly passing. How well am I spending my time? This should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Kachinu kohang sunyakare apiramamiti papachitena apinhang pachawe kitapang. Do I delight in solitude or not? This should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Atinukome uttari manusatamma alamarianyana tasana viseso atikato sohang pachime kale sabrahmachari hiputo namangkupavi samiti papachitena abinhang pachawe kitapang. Has my practice borne fruit with freedom or insight, so that at the end of my life I need not feel confused when questioned by my spiritual companions? This should be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. Ime ko tasatamma papachitena abinhang pachawe kitapati. These are the 10 dhammas to be reflected upon again and again by one who has gone forth. And the going forth being a ongoing removal of these filters or distortions of perception. And through that, arriving at a much deeper capacity for a relationship with reality, and going through the adjustments, which I have explained as what's the list of the 10 fetters. We have been going through those some sessions in the past. The 10 fetters which keep us bound, to that wheel of becoming and identification. So it's a very deep work, which calls us ever deeper into the practice. And it begins exactly there where we are and not anywhere else, in the present moment. And goal orientation is really detrimental here, but it's more like a willingness to be affected. It goes in many ways and really against the cultural paradigm of trying to create and control and make sure that there's as much comfort as possible. The path is not about comfort in that way, but it's a much more sustainable comfort, the comfort of letting go. Letting go of that which is between our ways of thinking and relating and reality, the way it is. So we have another 5 minutes to just sit now.